All right, here we go. So we're up to the section on karbanot, sacrifices. All right, we're going to get into it. Are you ready? Rivka, you want to lead it? I know that you already been through the sources. You want to give it?
What did I say?
Okay, fine. Here goes. The first source we're going to see is Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the Arizal, in his main book. I think it's fair to say this is the main book, the Eitz Chaim 42:1. Here goes. Bein hadomim v'hatzomeach hu hakar. Oh wait, a little background information. There's an idea in Judaism that there are the 4 levels of existence. 4 levels of existence. There should be 2 pages. Yes, there should be 2 pages. Okay. In Judaism, there are 4 levels of existence. We understand. There's what's called domeim, someach, chai, medaber. There is inanimate object, like a rock, for example. There is plant life. There is animal life. And there is a speaking being, person. Okay? Now listen to what the Arizal says. He says, Ben hatomeim v'hatzomeach hu hakorel. He says basically that you also have within these 4 levels of existence, you have things that like connect them, that are like mid stages between each one. Okay, so listen, between inanimate objects and plant life, you have coral, like in the ocean. Yeah, so it's like you can see that, like it's like on the one hand it's a rock, on the other hand it's like a plant, like a middle ground, like okay, hanikra almogim. What is that supposed to mean? I don't remember. But I'm sure it's something that's English has a close word to it. Uvein almog? No, fine, doesn't matter.
Almog means coral.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Uvein hatzomeach v'achayim, between plant life and animal life, hu adonai hasadeh hanizkar b'mesachet gelayim, shehu kemin kalev gadel bekarka v'taburo nishrash bekarka. Yonek misham ukishorchim hatabor shelo mes. Then in between plant life and animal life, you have something that's described in the Mishnah as like a dog that is kind of planted into the ground, and it's like belly sort of, it's not belly, but it's like it's rooted in the ground.
There's those like fly traps.
Exactly, that's what he's talking about. Most people believe that that's what he's talking about, a Venus flytrap. Yes, that is somehow between, like it's like a link between plant life and animal life, a Venus flytrap. Yes. Uvein hachai v'hamedaber, and between an animal and a speaking being, hu hakof, a monkey. How about that? Sounds familiar, right? Doesn't it? So let's keep in mind, before there's some theory of evolution or anything like this, Arizal said this, printed in print 500 years ago. 500 years ago.
But he doesn't say that we're necessarily from apes.
Doesn't say that, but listen. So listen to the next source. That's what I wanted to bring. Yofi, listen to the next source. Now listen to the next source. He says like this. Rabbi Tzvi Melech Medinov, the Bnei Yisachar, says like this. Nisan 11:1. He says, with all different levels of this world, right? He's talking about inanimate object, plant life, animal life, and speaking being. Between each one, there's an emtsai, like we just saw. But emtsai, a middle ground. Right? Between inanimate object and plant object, you have the algae. That's what I meant to say, algae. Between bein someach l'chai, between plant life and animal life, you have what's called, he called it a kesef chai. Fine, Venus flytrap, yeah? Bein chai l'medaber, you have a danei asedeh. Fine, he switched it up actually a little bit, but whatever. We just saw it a minute ago, right? So he says also, v'chein bein Torah shebechtav l'Torah shebal peh. There's something called kri uksiv, that there are certain places in the Torah where
people can think things as a misunderstanding.
Right. The point is, it's not a misunderstanding. There's a way that there are certain things that it's written in one way, but it's read in another way. You see us all over. If you take a Tanakh, one of those, whatever. You can see it. You can see
There was
In the
something.
Tanakh, you see on the side, it lists like the changes on the side.
There was something we recently talked about on Shabbat, and it was like something about Dibera Kalev, like when the dog stopped talking.
Mhm.
And then there were some people who interpreted it as like speak as your heart like says.
Kilev, yeah.
Like speak what your heart is saying.
Yeah.
And then, which is not the right way, like the right kind of thing. And then the other one's like the heart, like the Kalev is like the heart or something.
Right, Yofi. So here he says this. He wants to show you the look between Torah Shabbat and Torah Shabbat Peh. You have something that on the one hand is katuv, it's written, but on the other hand, we have a Baal Peh way of reading it. Right now, but here, listen. Here's what I brought. Here also what I wanted to add to this. If you look in the parentheses here, it says Kol all of these ideas, all of these concepts, all of these middle grounds that you see. What is it? It's to teach you it's to make known and reveal El Echad Baran Yotzer Echad Yetzran. That it reveals that Hashem created all of them. What does it mean to say? It means to say that by having this, not only the four levels, but also mid stages, it shows that it's not like the way we can look at it, looking back, is as if it's all one own unfolding of reality, which makes our brain say, okay, so hold on a second. If it's one unfolding of reality, so let's just go back. What was at the root of it? Meaning to say, he's saying like this: if there's something called evolution, he doesn't use the word evolution. He's not talking. He might be talking before the Bnei Sachar is probably talking before there was any kind of theory of evolution or anything like this that even came out. But he's saying that like the way it shows up to us, he's not necessarily saying that each one isn't created on its own, but a lot of times in Judaism, there's what we believe, and then there's also the way things appear. There's messages and things we can learn from the way things appear, right? So for example, there's certain things that talk about how the sun, in the Talmud, certain sources talk about how the earth goes around the sun, right? Way before there was such a theory in the world, the Talmud sources that talk like that. Other Talmudic sources talk about how the sun goes around the earth. This doesn't mean that the sun goes around the earth. It means that we're supposed to learn a message from what Hashem shows our eyes, right? And so it's the same thing here, right? What does it look? It shows up to us as if there is one grand extrapolation of reality from spiritual to physical. So, okay, do the rewind in your mind. So meaning to say, it all testifies to the idea that, okay, what kicked off the source? It all goes back to the idea that there's one God that was at the root of the entire extrapolation. All right, cool? He says also that this is the idea of Chol HaMoed as well. The mid-ground. Chol HaMoed is a mid-ground between Kodesh and Chol. On the one hand, it's holy. On the other hand, it's Chol, mundane. Okay, cool? You with me so far? She's falling asleep. Give her some wake-up pills. Next source. Rabbi Chaim Vital, who's the main student of the Arizal. Sha'arei Kedusha 3:2. He says like this. Zehu sod na'aseh adam b'tzalmenu k'dmusenu. It says in the Torah that when God created the human being, instead of saying, I'm going to now make the human being, he says, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. And so the obvious question is, hold on, who's us? God, like, does God need help? Like what? So there's one simple interpretation, I think it's Rashi brings it, that like, okay, God's doing it, but he's showing humility. So he talks to the angels as if they're going to be involved too. I'm going to give you Kabbalistic. I think this is going to tell the Kabbalistic interpretation, a Kabbalistic interpretation. We'll see. And let's see what it says. He says, it says it in plural. Yeah, this is the typical Kabbalistic understanding. That what Hashem was saying is, no. Everything in existence should put in of itself, put in of its own energy into the human being. So then everything else will be included within the human being because everything needs the human being's action. Because then when the human being goes ahead and does something good, not only is the human being elevating himself or herself, the human being will be elevating all of existence because all of its existence is invested in the human being. Of course.
Another 20 seconds of
explosions, not enough. I underdid it. By the way, the Nefesh Chaim, I don't know if we're going to see Nefesh Chaim in a minute, but I don't know if He's going to say this. I don't know, but Nefesh Chaim is going to say also that, like, of course, while that's true on the way up, God forbid it's also true on the way down. God forbid we mess up. We don't just bring ourselves down, we bring all creation down, because all creation is invested in with us. Anyway, what do you call it? This is the idea that this is what it means Kabbalistically when it says that Hashem put the Adam Rishon into Gan Eden to work the land and to guard the land. What does that mean to say? It says, but that means it refers to doing mitzvot, asay, proactive, and mitzvot los asay, and not active. Guarding from something negative happening. Like it says, Hashem Elokim ala Eretz l'sibat ki Adam ayin la'avodat adama. Okay. Beseder. I'm not quite sure why I included the second half of this here. I don't think we really need it. Next source to further build on what we just said. Nefesh Chaim on the bottom, 1:3. He says like this. This is what it means when it says that Hashem created the person, B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. What does it mean? Because just like Hashem is referred to, right? Hashem, Tselem Elokim, by the way, it means, Elokim means in particular, focusing in on the fact that Hashem is the one running the show behind all the powers. It means that just like Hashem is running the world, so Hashem, the human being is created with Tselem Elokim, with the image of God, like in a God's likeness. What does it mean? Just like Hashem runs the world, just like Hashem creates the world, so also the human being is going to quote unquote run the world. Human being is going to be the determinant of what happens in the world. Based on his actions, will determine what will be with the world. You hear the idea? So he's created like in the image of God, like just like God creates the world and determines what happens with the world. So also like the human being, Hashem sets it up there. Like also the human being is kind of going to determine what happens in the world. Say again?
We say it every Saturday.
What do we say every Saturday?
And I learned from
Shebra Elokim Lasot at the end, yeah?
Well,
good.
So Rav Asaf from Midrashet Shoshana in Tel Aviv, an Israeli Midrasha, said not to read it Veyichilu, like Veyichulu, like we did it together, like we.
Kolel.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. There you go. Welcome back. Kulam umisadram uminhigam kol rega kirtzano. Right, that's how Hashem runs the world at every moment the way He wants. So so that's why Hashem also set up that the human being sheyehu ha-potech v'asoger shakam alafei re'orot kuchot v'olamot. That Hashem set it up that the human being basically is going to be the one who determines what happens with the worlds. Al-pi kol petrei sidrei hanagotav, in accordance with what the human being does. B'cholet v'rega mamish, at every moment. What's he going to do with his actions, his speech, his thoughts? So then it comes out, ki'ilu, says if the human being, who gamken it's as if he's the one running the show behind them, right? So that's a system Hashem created, and that's the idea of Tselem Elokim according to one Kabbalistic interpretation. Why are we learning about all of this idea? Well, it's for this point. Here goes Likutei Halachos, Rabbi Nassan of Breslov, 3:27. Here we go. He says like this: This is the idea of what karbanos is all about. Everything we just said is a build-up to explain what karbanos is all about. All of when a person does a sin, it's as if it's an animal, right? A person's like an animal doing a sin, right? It means to say the person didn't assert the human consciousness over the animal side of himself, so he's acting like an animal. Right? That a person had desire, which is considered to be an animalistic thing, right? I'm not talking about, there's higher level desires, of course, but we're talking here about lower level desires. So just like a person did something inappropriate with the animal side, so a person goes ahead and atones with bringing forth an animal and recognizing that they were like the animal, and really that the animal side of them should really be on the altar and all that kind of stuff. Because through the person going ahead and doing the sin, going and doing a misstep, going away from who really they should be, and going instead like an animal that's just drawn to animalistic kind of desires and things like this. So what did he do? He took his human side and made it be like in servitude of the animalistic side of himself and animalism in this world. Right? So what does he do? He mixed in his tov, his good side, his soul side, his higher side, with the lower side. Hadas Tovara. And so there's a flavor of the sin in the Garden of Eden there. Because what happened in the sin in the Garden of Eden? A couple of things. Firstly, they ate from that tree of the mixing in of good into bad. Right? Not only that, I don't know if he means this, but also what did the person do? The person took that fruit from the outside of himself and put it inside himself, mixing in the good side, goodness, mixing it in with the bad that the fruit was, right? Which is what the fruit caused. So therefore, a person needs, according to the segula of the way karbanot works, right? Segula just means spiritual energy, or the way karbanot works, is that then a person goes ahead and brings a behema to a karban, as a karban, and so one of the things that's going on with the karban is you bring that karban then to Hashem, and so like it's like you mixed in animalism with humanism. When you bring that karban to Hashem, it's like you're extracting the God side, you're extracting godliness from animalness, right? The animalness is being taken away, and then you leave once again the godliness. Animals? Those animals are going to God, baby. Oh, what are those animals?
No, why those specific animals? I understand like the bull and I don't understand. I understand the bull. I don't understand the dogs, and I don't understand the sheep. Like why?
Good question. Off the top of my head, I cannot answer that off the top of my head, but I'm happy to hopefully see. I don't know where even I would look, but Bezrat Hashem. Bezrat Hashem, there will come a time where we can go into the spiritual significance of each and every one of those animals. That would be something. All right, next source.
Can I ask a question?
You just did, but you can ask another one. Go ahead.
You said that the same last time as well.
Well, you asked the same question. It gets the same answer. The answer hasn't changed. Go ahead. What's up?
Fair enough. All right. I don't know if the lady that just spoke now asked this question, but is there, according to each avera, there's different korbanos? Is there like a meaning behind each avera that we do? Is there like a specific korban that corresponds to the avera?
There is. So I mean, it's not as specific as what you're saying. It's not like there's 365 negative commandments, 365 thou shalt nots. There are not 365 different custom-made karbanot for each, but there are certain categories of karbanot, and they're for different reasons. I'm not going to go to that level of detail here. I can't off the top of my head. I don't know well enough. But certainly, there's reasons for it. By the way, I wouldn't stop with karbanot. There's also other different things that Judaism talks about that Beit Din would do to people based on certain circumstances. Whether it be as severe as death, whether it be like lashes, these are all under very severe circumstances that the Jewish court would ever do any of these things. But the point that I want to bring out is that like what he's sharing here is that he's talking about karbanot when it has to do with like due to a sin or a mistake that somebody made. And so he's showing that it's not about like, okay, we're going to put a smackdown on you. It's about like, there's a spiritual deficiency. Now we need the spiritual remedies, the spiritual repair, right? So it's the same thing when we're talking about the stuff that the Beit Din the Jewish court tells us to do under whatever the circumstance be, whether it be a sin between the human being and Hashem, or whether the person did something wrong to another person. The thing that the Beit Din is giving, the Jewish court is giving to the person, telling the person to do, it's not, okay, you sinned against God, now we're going to put the smack down on you. It's not about that. It's about, for whatever reason, this is the spiritual repair that is needed, right? So it's not like, okay, I'm going to send you some torture chamber to teach you a lesson. It's much more like, okay, it's much more like if you were to go to a doctor, not you, I don't want to put you in there. If a person would, God forbid, go to a doctor, and then the doctor would say, the doctor says, okay, I see you're drinking and smoke. Like if you continue to smoke 2 packs a day for the next 40 years, you're gonna need a lung transplant, right? The doctor's not saying, I'm so mad you didn't listen to me about not smoking, so I'm gonna cut you open and take your lung. Like, no, the doctor has a goal, keep you alive. So if you smoke 2 packs a day for the next 40 years, like nothing personal, but like my goal is to keep you alive. In order to do that, what we need to do is a lung transplant. It's the same thing here. It's what's called a kapara. It's for an atonement. It's to rectify a situation. There are no punishments, only consequences. All right. And so it's as simple as and matter of fact as that. Now you want to say, okay, well, why did Hashem set it up in this way? Whatever that already, I don't know. That's God's side of things. You're asking why God's made it this way. That it might be a little bit beyond our scope. We're dealing with what is in with this world. Let's try to explain it as best as we can. Does that make sense? Yeah, go ahead.
It does. I'm saying, I was asking, I think, a bit differently. Maybe you didn't understand me correctly. I was saying that if the korban is here to kind of, because we have this animalistic, I don't know how to explain it. We have an animalistic thing that just entered us, but a korban is there to kind of take it out of us, right? Because the korban.
That's what he's saying over here when he's talking about a sin offering. Yes.
So my question was a specific korban. Is it just a korban in general, any korban, or if someone sins with, let's just say ish, so there's a specific korban that kind of.
So there are under certain, yes, so that's what I'm trying to share. There are in general, it's not as specific. I don't know to what level of specificity, whatever we're talking about here, but there are certain categories of karbanot. There's certain categories of all sorts of different things that person has to deal with if they mess up, not just karbanot, but other things as well, like I was just mentioning. It doesn't get down to 365 different things, but it's more like there is a certain amount of them. I can't, off the top of my head, I'm not really able to say. But then based on what the person did, it's clear that a person is supposed to do this kind of sin offering or that kind of offering. So it is a certain, there isn't just one, but there also isn't 365. So there is some reasoning behind it. Certainly, it would be a worthwhile study to try to go ahead and like list out all of them and clarify. Okay, what is everything, and then say, okay, what is the common denominator between everything in the category of this kind of korban? That would be a great academic, not just academic. That would be a great pursuit, great Jewish pursuit and analysis. I have no plans to do it, but if you would like to do it, then go right ahead. If anyone else who would like to do it, go right ahead. I'd love to hear the results. I don't know. I mentioned this to my wife. My wife's very into anything and everything having to do with the Beit HaMikdash. So maybe I'll ask her if she has any insight into this. That would be interesting. Cool. Follow up. Did that make sense? Okay. Cool. All right. So. We're going to see now another piece from Bnei Yisachar, Rabbi Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov, Rosh Chodesh 2:3, where he talks about karbanot. He says, "V'nei inen karbanot hu lekarev kol medregot domem tumei chai medaber el kedusha." This is the one that they usually talk about, right? He says another idea. He says that the concept of karbanot is that you want to raise up lekarev kol medregot, all the different levels of this world. As we spoke about, there are 4 levels of this world: domem tumei chai medaber. Inanimate objects, plant life, animal life, and humanity. The idea is to uplift all of them. How so? Because he says that to uplift them all to kedusha, to holiness. He says, "Hine hakarban hachai." So, firstly, the chai, the animal, the animal level of humanity, that's the carbon itself. That is the sacrifice. Va'etzim, it's going to be burnt. So you need the wood. That's the plant life. That's the tzomeach. V'hamelach, that's the domain. There's salt involved in the carbonot. That's the domain. That's the inanimate object. And so the person who's bringing the carbon with his strength is bringing the carbon to Hashem. That is the medaber. That is the speaking being. So hinei kol hanefashot shel domain tzomeach medaber kulam mitkarvim u'mishtachavim lekdushato yitbarach shemo. So they're all bowing down. They're all having a part. They're all acknowledging and investing of themselves to go to the kedusha to Hashem. And this is Hashem's quote unquote, big fat quote unquote here. This is Hashem's quote unquote enjoyment, right? What does it mean? This is a much longer concept in Kabbalah of what that means. We've actually spoken. The truth is, we've actually spoken about it in the past. If you remember, certainly the first class and probably the third as well, when we talked about clothing, we talked about the idea of nachat, Hashem getting nachat, right? That just like, and I gave that example I always like to give about my kid eating the sour sticks, the whole thing. And so the idea is that's Hashem's quote unquote enjoyment is just like, there's no change that happens to Hashem, right? But when there's Hashemness is flowing forth and becoming revealed, even in that space that it could otherwise not be revealed, that's called nachas of Hashem. This is called Hashem's enjoyment, right? Does that make sense?
No, but I kind of come up with my own interpretation that I'm not doing.
All right, tell me your own interpretation afterwards. Okay, interesting to hear. So that's the idea. Nikra karban lashem. So this is called karban lashem. Why is it called a karban to God? Because it's from the word kiruv. Because it's not really, karban doesn't translate as sacrifice. There's no, we call it that just because I guess that's what they call it in English. They're pagan quote unquote version of this. They call it sacrifice. We call it a karban because it's something it's bringing closer. We're bringing everything to God. We're bringing everything up to Hashem, right? That's what it's from the word kiruv, to bring close, and it's elevating all the levels to Hashem. Domain tzomeach medaber. Shemekarev kol arba madrigos nefashos el arba osios Hashem hanichbad. Because so you bring everything close to Hashem, bring everything to connect to Hashem. All right. So this is the idea. This is probably the simplest. It's still spiritual Kabbalistic. It's still the simplest idea of how we understand Kabbanot. We good? Last source on the page. Here goes. Oh, we never posted did you post the source sheet on the thing? Fine, whatever.
I never got it.
You never got? I sent it to you. I did send it to you. Tell me, said that, whatever. I sent it to you. Then you said you couldn't print it out. Remember?
Nachon.
There you go. Said it. All is good in the world.
Yes.
It's okay. Last source on the page. It's a longie. It's a longie, but a goodie. Here goes. This is from Rabbi Yeshaya Harwitz, the Shlah HaKadosh on the Torah in the introduction. By the way, if anyone would like to visit the Shlah, you can go to his kever in Tiberia, Tiberias. Yes, right over there. Exactly, you're pointing to. Is that the direction to Tiberia? Okay, so you can go check him out there.
That's the west.
He's in the same cemetery. We're looking to go north.
East.
We need to go north there.
It's north.
Tiberias is north, yes, indeed.
So it's this way. North.
There you go. So go there to Tiberia, in the same cemetery as the Rambam, and I believe Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakkai is over there.
Cool.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, I visited and I had no idea who, but like now it's like,
Isn't Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai also there?
Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is not in the same
Near
place.
there.
Okay, he's a half hour away. Yeah, he's a half hour away.
Isn't he in Meron?
He's in Meron. That's about a half hour from Tiberias. That's correct.
You should
So
go.
no, I'm getting mixed up.
You're getting mixed up. Rabbi Shimon, there's Rabbi Akiva the Ramchal. That's somewhere else in Tiberia also.
No,
That's a
there's
different
another
location.
rabbi. He's a Sephardi one.
Wait, what was your question?
She's just talking about, she's trying to figure out who's.
Wait, what is Tiberia? Okay, never mind.
Sorry, we're getting out of context.
Yeah, okay, that's the point. We can ask the other unrelated questions afterwards. I'm happy to stick around. Here goes. Achar kach. He said, "Higia zman shara kadosh baruch hu ador sharuya inyan leinatin lehem tayag b'zeh ofen kol echad yekayim mitayag b'pol ma she'efshar lekayim." Okay, so we're set up in a situation in which everyone should be keeping as many of the 613 mitzvot as they can. right? Can we, by the way, keep Karbanot today?
Yeah.
So the answer, first and foremost, the first answer, of course, the obvious answer that your average Joe on the street, if you were just asking, hey, can we do Karbanot today? Of course, average Joe is first going to say no, right? Because there's no Beit HaMikdash, right? Then we're going to get as deep as you want to go right now. So here we go. He says one thing he says here, he's going to say a couple things. If we do all of the mitzvot to the extent that we can, right? As kishosekin mekayem before ma de'efshar lo, and we do as much as we can. And a person is joyful with serving Hashem to the extent he can. He guys shows that he testifies with his actions that clearly he's ready to do everything to serve Hashem that he's able to do. As then whatever he couldn't do, it's as if he did it. Why? Because he showed he's ready to do it. He shows he's ready to do it. He shows it's like the thing that's holding him back from doing isn't him. Right? He's not the one that's holding him back. So back and do it. It's coming from some other situation, some other problem. Right? In our case, we're talking about Karbanos. There's no Beis HaMikdash, right? Right? But okay. I'll come upon him. Someone say something?
Yeah, question. I'm not going to ask. Can I ask a question this time? Why can't tshuva be instead? Like, why can't we do tshuva instead of bring a korban? If it's about kind of removing the animalistic side that entered us, why can't we do that by tshuva? Why isn't tshuva enough?
There are sources that say that the main part of the korban is the tshuva that goes on with the korban. So he's not going to say that here, but there are actually other sources which do exactly say that. That he said that it says that the best thing that Hashem wants is a ruach nispara, a broken spirit. Broken spirit doesn't mean like depressed person. It means a person who sees their imperfections or whatever and is striving and wants more, and recognizes that they're not perfect and all that kind of stuff. So it says that is like a korban of Hashem. That's like a zevach, a sacrifice of Hashem, is when a person has that broken spirit, which means tshuva. So it happens to be exactly true what you're saying. We also have this gift from Hashem to be able to do karbanot. It's considered to be, I guess, more objective, right? It means like, a person, even there, by the way, a person's supposed to see the korban and have the broken spirit and recognize that really it should be me that's up on that altar, not that animal. So there is that aspect to it for sure. But what you're saying does have its place. What do we need karbanot for? I guess it's also something. It's also certainly it's adding something. But what you're saying is for sure true and stated in Judaism as well. So very good, well done. So. על כל פנים נזכר מתייג בכל ישראל, דהיינו תורס כהנים שנתקיימו בכהנים, וכן מצוות ייבום למי שבא לידו ייבום, right? So you see that like that the Torah, to the extent we can, we fulfill it, but nationally. Right, we fulfill it nationally by like the Kohanim, for example, do what the Kohanim are supposed to do. Someone who needs to do Yibum does what the Yibum, right? That the Yibum is certainly not something that comes up. What is Yibum? We'll have to talk about that another time. But that is something that comes up. That's something that is, that is rare, that comes up in a rare situation. So not everyone's going to have that even option to do it. V'chein kulam. Umi shelo haya efshar l'kayem v'kiyem kol ma she'efshar v'os. So a person who's not able to do certain things, but he does do as much as he possibly can. And he learns Torah in a pure way. He learns the Torah about it. And he's involved in the Torah of learning about the things, right? For the purpose of learning it, teaching it, making sure that everything's right, and basically making sure he wants to do it. Meaning he wants to do what he's learning about. What he finds in the Torah. He wants to do it. So even though he's held back from doing it, but he does want to do it and he's ready to do it. so it says if it counts for him as if he did it because he basically has actualized, he's done whatever he's able to do, and he's ready to do more. And this is what it says in the Gemara, where it says, if a person planned, he calculated, he was ready, he wanted to do a mitzvah, but it turned out he wasn't able to do it. It says in the Gemara that person like that, it's as if they did, right? Imagine a person plans to build a hospital. He walks outside, God forbid, he's ready to do it, it's real, he has the money, whatever, he's going to do it. Walks outside, God forbid, gets hit by a bus. Boom, gone. So you know what? It counts. What we're saying here is it counts as if he did it. It counts if he gets the schar mitzvah as if he did it. Okay, so and that's what it says. Okay, fine. That was half the source. Next half of the source. He says, Binyan hachana, so what does it mean to be prepared to do it? It doesn't, he's saying he's going to add another piece here. Not only is he prepared to do it, but what does it mean to be prepared? It means you do as much of the mitzvah as you're able to do. What does he mean by that? He says, let me explain, he says. So even the thing that you're not able to do, well, what in that mitzvah can you still do even though you're not able to do it? So for example, Yilmod mitzvah. He learns about the mitzvah. It's like the rabbis taught. Says in the Gemara, anyone who learns is involved in the learning and understanding of Parshas Karbanas, who ki'ilu ikriva karbanot.
Is only talking about men, or does this apply to women?
It says if they did the karbanot, probably anyone, right? It's something that you could.
Like learning Torah isn't necessarily like a thing for men, but like we're learning. So is it like does that apply to us, or we kind of like?
Probably no, probably yes, because it's the same thing. Firstly, women could bring karbanot.
No, I'm not saying about Korban. I'm saying like
other things. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Just like if I learned something about Kohen, I'm not a Kohen. Oh.
I feel better.
Okay, good. It's all about how you feel. That's the main thing. You gotta make you feel good. That's the main thing here.
You could feel good, but it's not.
Okay, good. I feel good. All right, Gam im Natano Kadosh Baruch Hu Chachma. Even Hashem gave us Chachma. Gave the person chachma v'chanenu b'bina yada v'eskel soda mitzvah ki aval pi shelo yuchal lekayim a mitzvah before yikaimenu b'seichel eskel levinota. Right. So imagine Hashem gave a person like grand abilities of conceptualizing and thinking and whatever. So a person is able to understand the deeper sodot, deeper secrets, Kabbalistic secrets of the mitzvah, even if we're not able to keep it. So still, a person on the level of thought is keeping it. Right. Gam imera mitzvah zu lechavero yazor hu et chavero is the zrenu v'yigrom shikayma bezen ishlam ma'alat hachana v'ola lo ki'ilu kima b'fal. Right? Or for example, let's see. He's not talking about karbanos in a second, but like let's say there's another mitzvah that someone. Let's say you have a Kohen friend. And he doesn't know how to do a certain mitzvah that applies to Kohanim. Okay, so you learned as much as you could about it. Now you can, not only did you learn about it for yourself, you could now help someone else who that mitzvah does apply to because of your knowledge. So look, you're involved in the mitzvah as much as you possibly can be involved. Even though it's not on you to do it, you're helping someone who it is on them to do it. This is what the psukim hint to when they say, in Dvarim, ki ha-mitzvah azos asher anochi mitzvavcha hayom no lefleis hi mimcha. It shouldn't fall from you. That it shouldn't be distant from you. It's not in Shemayim. It's not across the sea. Because the Torah and the mitzvahs are actually closer to you than you think. It's in your mouth to do it. It's in your heart to do it. It means to say it's not just action. There's a way on certain levels we can fulfill it, even if the action isn't available to us to do. And this is what it concludes and says, this is what I'm saying. This is what I said earlier. Whatever you can possibly do, so do what you can do. So and then the part of the mitzvah that person can't do in action. So there's a fixing for that. There's what we can do, which is do it in your mouth. Hainu limud mitzvahs. Learn about the mitzvah. Get involved in that learning of the mitzvah. It's as if the person did it. because a person's involved in this mitzvah to the extent they could be involved in the mitzvah. Gam nichlal b'tivat beficha lilmod et mitzvah lacherim sheyichal lakima. Right, and so also included in doing the mitzvah with your mouth, meaning not just learning it, but you can also teach it to others who it is relevant for them, the mitzvah, right? Like, for example, you're teaching a Kohen how to do Kohanic stuff, for example, right? Or a guy teaching a woman about something, or I don't know, whatever it is, right? Or vice versa. What's this? V'yizarzam, V'yizram, and also like get them going, get them excited about it, get them enthusiastic about it, and help them to do it. Gamil b'vachag hiachanat mitzvah, and so also to do the Torah in your heart is the preparation of the mitzvah, and also to know the sodad, to know the secrets, the Kabbalistic secrets of the mitzvah. Each person according to their capabilities, spiritually and conceptually and thought-wise. And so then when you go ahead and do this, no niflate, lo niflate, velo rechoka. So you're not going to miss out, and it's not going to be distant from you. Vehu ki'ilu kiyen before kol taya. So this is if a person practically actually did the 613. So there you go. There's karbanos, some ideas about karbanos, and also how we can kind of be involved in this time. Questions, those ideas on the Zoom or in person.
I'm trying to think.
A hush comes over the crowd. Okay.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the science of this?
I don't know what you're saying.
Like, how does this work? That
What does that mean?
like, okay, so how do I say this? How do we know this?
He's explaining. Firstly, the Gemara says it, but also he's explaining like what does this pasuk mean that says that the what's it called, that the psukim, that the mitzvahs will never completely fall from you, that they're not going to be distant from you. Seems like sacrifices, for example, are distant from us. It seems like other mitzvahs are distant from us. What does it mean to keep it in your mouth, keep it in your heart? So he's explaining this pasuk based on that. He's explaining how we can be involved in these mitzvahs now. Also, by the way, we know that the Torah is never not applicable. It's not so like what, because nobody's in mikdash, so a third of the mitzvahs don't exist right now. The answer is on one level they certainly do, because the mitzvah, they're always supposed to teach us something. We're always supposed to be involved with them at every time.
Doesn't answer my question, but I'm thinking like everything is a gift anyway. Like we think we do Hishtadlut, and then like anyway, like right, like let's say I did.
Yeah, but we're not going there right now. A person has to do the mitzvahs.
It applies. Like this is like, is this also like? Okay, fine. Say no. Okay. I can let it go.
Let it go for a minute. All right, we're going to cut the Zoom here. Thank you for joining. Those on Zoom. Those who are still left here. And great to have you here. Very good to have you here. And keep on keeping on. And Bezrat Hashem, we'll see you hopefully next time.
Oh, no, thank you.
Be well.